So, Five Nights at Freddy's. This is kind of a hard one to talk about. It was actually a lot more interesting than I thought it would be, especially when I learned, the only thing I knew beforehand, I learned just a couple of nights ago, was that Scott Cawthon was directed, or Scott Cawthon actually played a big producer role on it, and I think he wrote the film, and that they got the Jim Henson Company to make the animatronics, which was immediately just like, oh, okay, so there is actual effort put into this, and it really shines through, even though I wouldn't really consider this movie that good. Um, but the weird thing is that it's like it wasn't what I thought like the Hollywood um big budget Five Nights at Freddy's movie would be, in that it's actually a lot more similar in tone to the games, in that you think, oh, what's the movie gonna be? He's just in the security office, and it's a pretty straightforward horror movie of the animatronics try and kill him. No, it actually goes a lot more along with the lore of the games, in that there's a huge psychological and paranormal aspect to it with the dead kids and William Afton. Um, and so that was a pleasant surprise. And like they do more stuff with like his life outside of Mike Schmidt, the security guard's life outside of it, and kind of his psychological trauma. But I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, I would say that production wise, the movie looked really good. Like, again, it was great seeing the animatronics that were done by Jim Henson, which just they brought them to life, and just they have practical effects, which again, I thought, oh, Hollywood version, they're just going to be terrible CGI crap. But no, no, they looked really, really good. And like in certain scenes, like we just get to see them walk around, and like we don't we don't see them just like in brief flashes. No, we actually get to see the whole thing, which is really cool. Um the biggest problem I think I had in the movie though was a lot of the acting felt very wooden, and like Josh Hutcherson, who plays Mike Schmidt, the main character, is just like has no charisma and just is giving the same kind of blank, worried expression the whole time. And then like the female cop, that's kind of the other main character, is like really annoying and weird. Um, but let me get into the plot of the movie. Um, so it takes place in 20 years ago, or in 2000, because you can't really be nostalgic for the 80s anymore, because none of the people that have, well, no, not many people play the games, but most people know about Five Nights at Freddy's by watching Markiplier and PewDiePie do Let's Plays of them. And that generation of Zoomers and Millennials, we're not nostalgic for the 80s because we were all born in the mid to late 90s. So I kind of like that it takes place in uh, just the year 2000. So like they're we're looking back at that like people then would be looking back at the 80s, which makes me feel old. But yeah, so it's set in 2000, and Mike Schmidt is this kind of down on his luck guy who lost his job as a security guard at a mall because he tackled and started beating a guy he thought was abducting a child, but it turned out just to be his dad, and the kid was being, a bit grumpy. Um, because he's super paranoid, because when he was a kid, his little brother was abducted and driven off, and he keeps having nightmares about it. And he's gotten to the point where he's like so kind of paranoid about it, and like can't let it go, that he's like trying to force himself to dream that again so he can try and find any that relive that trauma over and over again in his dreams, because he thinks, oh, okay, there's a theory that you remember all of that. And this is the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, by the way, but I like that it gets into all the kind of psychological paranormal stuff, which again, it adds a lot of running time to the movie, but it makes it different, which I like. So he thinks he can remember like who it was that kidnapped his brother, so he can finally find him. But he's really down on his luck, and then of course his like he's living with, or he's adopted his I guess baby sister, even though she's like 7 or 8 years old, and like he looks like he's in his early 30s, so I don't know how that works. But like his aunt or sister-in-law or something wants to take custody of her, And it's just kind of this, the tone of this movie is weird because does feel a lot more, it feels a lot less mature and adult than I thought it would be. Which, again, given this is Five Nights at Freddy's and its main audience was younger teenagers anyway, makes sense. So I'm not gonna dock it points for that. But yeah, so of course, he's at like an employment office and he's trying to find any job, and the guy's like, well, there is this one job where you have to, just be a nighttime security guard. He's like, well, no, I can't do that. I've got to take care of my kid's sister. And he's like, okay, well, I guess he has like another sister or somebody like that babysits, and then like she wants to get money from the aunt. And so she's like, okay, you and your goon friends go smash up the Freddy Fazbear's pizza place, which is abandoned in the movie, and he just has to look after it, which again should send up weird red flags. But I digress. They smash up the place during the day right after he leaves the shift, and like their plan is, oh, we're gonna get him fired because he didn't take care of the place, even though they attacked the restaurant after his shift was over, so it wouldn't really mean anything. But anyways, of course they all get killed, so now he doesn't have a babysitter anymore, so he has to bring her over, his little sister. And he's also meets this cop named Vanessa, who's the worst cop ever, but it actually becomes explained where this is so convoluted, and I'm trying to explain the plot because this movie is a lot longer than I thought it would be and probably should have been, but that kind of makes it interesting. So anyways, he meets this cop and like he's like noticing, okay, there's kind of weird stuff going on. And she's like, oh, don't let this place get to you. You'll probably quit. And she's like, and then like I thought this was just gonna be campy, though this cop is really stupid because the next day after the place gets trashed, there's like no police investigation. There's like nobody that like even tells him that it was trashed, or she just tells him. I was like, this is the worst cop ever, but again, it gets explained later why she's acting like this. But of course, he has to bring his little sister along, because he doesn't have anybody to babysit her now. So he's like, okay, just stay in the office. And he just keeps having these dreams where he's sleeping on the job, of course, or, for one thing. And, like, he keeps having the dreams about his, like, little brother. And then he sees these 5, like, ghost children in the woods in his dream. And, of course, we know as an audience, these are the 5 kids that William Afton murdered, and stuffed in the suits. But, I guess the problem with this is, like, I'm curious as to what somebody who didn't know or doesn't know anything about the Five Nights at Freddy's lore would make of this. I think they'd probably think it's incredibly bizarre and confusing, which it is. It's just I've listened to so many theory videos back when Five Nights at Freddy was coming out almost 10 years ago. Like, I kind of know the lore now, so I'm like, okay, yeah, no, this makes sense. This is what William Afton does. But anyways, like, this is around maybe about the hour mark, and like this is when the movie just takes a weird, bizarre turn, and even for like a Five Nights at Freddy's movie, where the animatronics actually have like an attachment, or they take a liking to his little sister named Abby, and they're like all nice and happy, and then like the next night, him and the cop are both there, and he's like, oh, you knew about this? He's like, yeah. And he's still not questioning, like, yeah, this cop knows all about this, that like it is kind of refreshing that they just kind of accept, yeah, no, there's ghosts of children in these animatronics, that's how it works, and they believe it. There's no like forced drama of, oh, I don't believe this, because they literally just show them walking around, and Josh Hutcherson is just like, yeah, okay. And like then it just has the most bizarre like tonal shift I've seen, where there's a literal montage, a happy music montage where, and this is after the animatronics have murdered 4 people already. One of them, which we see her like get cut in half. There's a lot of blood and gore. And now it's like these same animatronics are like having fun, like building a pillow fort or a fort out of like the tables and chairs in the restaurant. I'm like, what? What's going on with this movie? But then, you know, she gets too close to one of the animatronics and it short circuits. She gets a bad shock. And then, like, the cop goes nuts and is just like, don't ever bring her here again, or I'll kill you. And so I'm like, so now the cop is, like, threatening to kill him and he's still not questioning it. But, yeah, so things get more and more bizarre until I think the final night is he comes over. No, like, he's like, I don't have anybody to babysit and I can't bring her with me to work because obviously it's way too dangerous. So, like, my aunt, who's trying to get custody of her, who also hired the thugs to try and destroy the restaurant, but they all died, and she doesn't, like, ask, oh, where are any of these people? She, ends up dead because Golden Freddy, one of the animatronics, killed her because, okay, let me explain this. In one of his dreams, in his lucid dream, Mike Schmidt is able to communicate with the kids who got killed by William Afton, and they're like, hey, we can kind of bring you back to your childhood and you can rescue your brother and everything will be fine, and you can just kind of live in a dream world, I guess. And he's like, okay, in exchange for what? Well, we want Abby, we want your little sister. And he's like, okay. And then he's like, no, you can't do that, but I guess the curse is already there. And so they send Golden Freddy, like the kind of mangled up one, to go and get her and like bring her to the restaurant. And there's just, again, there's like these weird humorous moments where I don't know if I'm supposed to take any of this seriously or not. Probably not, because like Abby gets into a taxi in the middle of the night. The taxi driver doesn't think to question any of this. And even when like the giant, 7-foot tall or 8-foot tall giant animatronic sits down, he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna, yeah, I should stop picking up these freaks. And it's like, okay, I guess he's fine with that. So he brings her to the restaurant. They try and stuff her in a suit. Vanessa is the cop, and Mike Schmidt stop them, and like, you kind of have the climactic scene of them trying to fight the animatronics, and she reveals that her father is William Afton, who, this is kind of their explanation of why she acts so weird, is that she's still working for her father for some reason, even though she hates him, and he's not really forcing her to be there. Like, you kind of keep patrols at the restaurant, and don't tell any of the new security guards what's really going on, but she kind of let that slip. And the souls of the dead children, they're peaceful normally, but William Afton is still influencing them. And we finally see, the evil Golden Bonnie suit, which in the lore is the suit that William Afton used to lure and kill the children. And we see that, William Afton is actually the character you wouldn't expect, the career counselor, okay? And I think it's the actor that played Shaggy in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. And he's probably the only good actor in the movie, or gives the best performance, because he's giving the nice, over-the-top evil, which I wish they let him do more of that, but, it's revealed he's controlling the children because of all the kids' drawings show the bunny is all happy and friends with them, and so his little sister Abby figures that out and, like, draws him being mean and showing that he's the one that killed them all, and that makes the animatronics turn on him. They, like, bite him, the little cupcake animatronic, and that causes all the spring locks to fail and kill him slowly, which is what happens in the game. And they kind of drag him away. And then the movie ends. Like, and I know this is just if you don't know what Five Nights at Freddy's is, this has been very bizarre, but I kind of think it's bizarre in a good way. Like, I love the effects, as I said. The Jim Henson company did a really good job, and like, that it wasn't CG. The music was good, and a lot of it felt like a nice love letter to the fan community that made Five Nights at Freddy's popular and made it so that you could have a movie about it. Like, Matt Pat, of course, shows up in a cameo at the diner. He gives a really good performance for the few lines he's given. He's supposed to be like the happy-go-lucky, waiter that's super excited, and he has to give his line. Well, that's just a theory, which I liked that. That was cute. And then I heard that, like, Markiplier was supposed to give a cameo, too, as, like, he was supposed to be the first security guard that we see in the movie that gets killed in the intro, but I guess he couldn't make it, which, that would have been fun. And they had, like, the Living Tombstone do, like, the end music for it, which is, like, a song. They do, like, the Five Nights at Freddy song that was, like, a fan song that they did, like, 9 years ago. So that kind of brought me back. But, yeah, like, on the one hand, the acting was not very good. And, like, a lot of the writing seemed very convoluted or, like, made the characters not act in any rational way. But at the same time, I really liked all the weird psychological and paranormal stuff of, like, his lucid dreaming interacts with the ghosts, and, like, we get to interact and, like, hang out with the animatronics a bit, and showing, they're not actually, it's kind of this cool double twist, right? Where the first thing is, okay, there's evil ghost children in the animatronics, but then, no, they're actually kind of friendly. They're peaceful spirits. It's like, no, they're being... Sorry. They're being controlled by William Afton. And so they're evil, but no, they're good again at the end. And then the movie ends, and it's like, okay, he doesn't have a new job, but we don't see any of that. But hopefully things get better. Vanessa, the cop lady, she got stabbed by her father, but is now in the hospital with a coma. So, yeah. The movie looked good. I think the sound direction was really good. And again, the animatronics looked super, super good. They didn't really use a lot of CG, only in a couple parts. I was most disappointed, though, that we didn't have a Nick Cage... a Nick Fury movie. Nick Cage was in the terrible version of this movie. A Nick Fury moment where, after the credits, out of the car and knocking at... Mike Schmidt's door is Henry Emily, who, just in the lore, was the other partner that founded Five Nights at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza with William Afton, and he's like the good guy. But there'll probably be a sequel. I kind of hope this movie does really well, even though it wasn't that good, or at least in my opinion. But there's a lot of aspects that I like to it, so it's like, my review of it's very mixed. I feel like if they had a bit more charismatic actors, I wish Matt Pat was in the movie more, because he actually was giving a fun performance. Either that or just like, but I like the fact that they let the Scott Cawthon have a lot of influence on the movie. So, and that it kind of gave it a lot more authenticity or heart to it. The movie has soul. It's not like the soulless what you think like the Hollywood version of this movie would be. But yeah, I don't really know how I would score it, because on the one hand, like, there's aspects of it that I'm like, this is like an 8, 9 out of 10. Others, it's like, this is like a 2 or 3. So I'm like, I don't want to say like a 5 or 6 out of 10, because I still think it's worth going to, but it's such a weird movie, especially if you don't know the context. But it was a pleasant surprise, and judging by all the trailers I had to see of movies that were coming out, this looks like this was a masterpiece in comparison to anything else that seems it's going to come out soon. Except for the Napoleon movie. I'm actually really excited for that. I think Ridley Scott and Joaquin Phoenix are going to do a really good job with that. But yeah, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Any last thoughts? It's just, I would recommend seeing it. It's a really long movie. It's like 2 hours long, which for like a horror movie, I didn't think it would be like that. But they managed to stretch out the source material, and like, one thing I can say is I was not bored in the movie. Even in like the non-nighttime parts of the movie, they at least have a lot of interesting exposition, or lot of psychological stuff that goes on. So it wasn't dull. I just felt like, okay, rewrite the cop character, make Mike Schmidt a lot more charismatic, and like give him more of a personality than just, oh, I'm, single dad. But yeah, that's Five Nights at Freddy's. All right, happy Halloween, everybody.